Hey class, in this video I'm going to go over some basic audio editing. In the intro video I actually kind of talked about a lot of this stuff as I was kind of demonstrating some basic audio stuff, so I'll go through it kind of quickly again. So I'll review it a little bit, but I don't want to kind of, take up a bunch of time. So I'll just go through kind of our basic setup and then how to make some edits and then saving your files. I have this kind of intro project that I already started over in Audition. I'm just going to create a new project just to quickly review that. So I'm going to go to File and New Multi-Track Session. So a multi-track section is, just what it sounds like. We can add multiple tracks and edit them together. So I'm going to call this Editing. And I think it's already there, but I'm just going to make sure it's saved in my audio folder. So this has like choose button, and I'm going to leave all the defaults the same. So that does the same thing where we have all these extra tracks. I'm going to do what I normally do. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to delete the empty tracks and then go to multi-track, add mono track for my recording. And I'm just going to double check that I have the right hardware selected. So I have my microphone and I have my screen record out. You probably will have headphones or something like that here, or speakers. And let's check the monitor. It actually is looking pretty decent. I'm gonna still kind of set the recording volume to -12. I think that was pretty good for last time, and I'll just zoom in here. So I'm going to do something similar to what I did last time. I'm going to record a little intro and then just make some basic edits. So we'll kind of talk about the way to do that. I'll review the transport controls. I'll look at the different tools, and we'll look at Zoom, do some edits, and we'll save our session. Once I have the right recording set up, I want to turn on this recording button so that when I record, it'll use this track and this microphone. This is so like if you have multiple tracks, which we don't have, you can choose which track you're recording into. So I'm going to click on the R to arm the recording and just hit the red record button. I can also hit Shift Space to start recording. And again, I'm going to do like a podcast intro. It's just kind of like an easy default to go with. For your own project, obviously you don't have to do a podcast style project. You don't even have to record your own voice. If you don't want to, you could record other people's voices, or you could just do something that's just sound. You don't necessarily need a voice or talking at all in the project, but it is an option. Mostly I'm just using this as an example because it's easy for me to generate sound since I'm already talking anyway. So let's go ahead and record my intro. Welcome to the MMP 100 podcast. Today we are going to be talking about editing, and we will look at some of the basic tools in Adobe Audition. Okay, so that was a little bit better, not so much peaking this time. Let's go ahead and run that back. So I'm going to drag the playhead back here. And then again, these are my transport tools down here. You can see there's a play button. Welcome. Once I start playing, there's a pause button. Welcome. And stop. There's also rewind and fast forward, and then rewind and there's like rewind all the way to the end of the clip. If I have multiple clips, this will just go to the next clip. So if I record another clip here, let's just do that real quick. This is another clip for demonstration purposes. So now if I move the playhead, I'll go from the end of the clip to the beginning of the next clip. And you can see there's key commands for all of this stuff. So you can move, if I do Option and arrow key, I can just move on the keyboard. So a lot of people just use the keyboard and not the mouse as much. There's also a loop button. We'll look at how to do that in a moment. But if I click on that, it'll loop, it'll loop back to the beginning. So if I go to the end purposes, it goes back to the beginning and it keeps playing. But normally we use loop to loop sections of audio as we're editing. So let's turn that off for now. And let's go over some editing tools. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Actually, let's talk about the zoom tools. We talked about this a little bit before, but you have these two bars. One at the top shows you the horizontal timeline. So if we make this smaller, it zooms in to different parts of the audio. And then if I pan this back and forth, we can move across the timeline. So we can focus on different parts of our audio to edit. And then if I click this button, it zooms everything back out. The same thing occurs over here with our tracks, although we don't have multiple tracks, so we're not going to worry about this quite yet. And that's the basic way you can do it. There's also like zoom tools with the mouse. So if I hold Command on Apple or Control on Windows and I use the scroll wheel, I can zoom in and out of wherever the mouse is pointing. So you'll notice that if I move my mouse over here, I can zoom into that section of audio. So that makes it easier to like quickly zoom in and out of a particular section. If I see something over here that I don't like, I can kind of zoom over here and then edit this out, and then I can quickly zoom out. If I hold Shift, it pans. So if I'm holding Shift and scrolling, you can see I'm panning back and forth. Again, this only works with the scroll wheel, or if you have a trackpad, you could do it with your trackpad. And let's see, those are basically, I can zoom and pan. So if you want to work a little bit faster, you can use those little key commands, but obviously it's not necessary. Okay, so if we have like different track components like this, if you want to get rid of a track, you can just hit backspace on the keyboard and it'll delete it. I'm going to undo that real quick. You can always hit Command Z or Control Z to undo things. If I right click, it also shows me a bunch of different options here. So delete is obviously the delete key. You can do a ripple delete, which is going to move everything over. We'll look at that in a second. And then there's other options here that we'll ignore for now. So I'm just going to delete that. I can also copy and paste. So if I wanted to make copies of this, I could copy this and then move the playhead over here and paste it. And so now we have these two. When I have these like multiple sections, if I drag them on top of each other, those yellow lines show that it's going to crossfade between those two sections. That's really useful if I'm trying to like edit out little like ums or ahs. I can crossfade the audio so you don't hear clipping. Maybe we'll do an example of that in a moment. But for now, let's delete these. So if I want to get rid of a track, I can just delete it like that. If I'm editing a section, so let's zoom into the beginning. So I have this little clip at the beginning, this little click here. You can hear I'm doing I'm like clicking my tongue or something like that. When you're recording like voice, there's going to be a lot of sounds that you want to remove, like clicks and ums and ahs, depending on how much time you want to spend getting the recording right. You might want to edit those out. I definitely want to edit this one out. So there's a couple different ways that I can do this. So what I need to do is isolate this part of the audio. And so if I move my playhead, past here, and I click on the track, and I right click, and I can go to split right here. It's going to split that track into two different clips. So let me Command Z undo and show that again. So I can move the playhead where I want the split to occur. So let's say I actually want to cut out this whole bit at the beginning before I start talking. I can move the playhead, and it doesn't matter where I click, the split is going to happen at the playhead. So if I right click and I go to split, it splits where the playhead is. And I can also hit Command K to do that, is the key command, or Control K. Once I have these two clips, now I can delete that first clip and I can move this guy back to the beginning. And once I get to 0, it won't let me keep going, which is good because, if I want to get rid of some of this audio, I would have to cut it. So that's the kind of default tool. That's the move tool, is to move clips around. And that's the default that you're going to have set up. The tools are up here. They're kind of small. And we're not going to use all of them, but we're just going to mainly use the move tool and then the time selection tool. Those are kind of the two main ones that I use. Move tool is V and time selection tool is T. So let's move this back to the beginning. I'm going to go back here and play it again. Welcome to the... So that's pretty good. Sometimes when you make a cut, I don't think it really needs it here, but if I zoom in here a little bit, sometimes when you make a cut, there's going to be like a little clipping that you don't want to hear. Actually, let me move this over here and see if we can hear it like that. Welcome. You can't really hear it because it's not very loud, but let's imagine there's like more noise in the recording. If I wanted to kind of fade in, you can see there's these little boxes in the corners of the tracks. This is just to fade in. So this just makes the yellow line represents volume. And so if I drag this out really far, you'll be able to hear what this sounds like. Welcome to... It's kind of hard to hear it because it's such a short amount of audio. So let's do this. I wouldn't normally do this, but you'll hear. Welcome to the MMP. So you hear it getting it's quiet at the beginning and it gets louder towards the end of that fade. So the fade is a really nice way to just like fade in tracks. This one doesn't really need it, but a lot of time when you make edits, there's sort of harsh clips in the noise, and so you want to make a little fade here. And you can get rid of it just by dragging it back here. And then if you want, you can actually move the fade up and down. So you can have a linear fade where it just goes from 0 to 1, or you can kind of ramp into a fade or ramp out of a fade. I won't go too much into that detail because it's a little more than we really need to know right now, but I'll just add a little fade here. Welcome to... Okay, so that's pretty good so far. Let's do another little edit. I should have made more mistakes in my recording, but let's see if I can find something I want to get rid of. So let's zoom out to the MMP 100 podcast. Today we are going to be talking about editing, and we will look at some of the basic tools in Adobe Audition. Okay, I didn't really make any real gaffes, so maybe I'll record myself again and put some ums in there. Although there is a little sound right here. Audition. There's like a little sound right here from the microphone, so I'll just cut that out and delete this. And let's record a little bit, and I'm gonna make some audio like mistakes this time. Okay, now I'm recording again. I don't know what I'm talking about. So there are lots of ums and ahs that I should delete. Okay, so if you have a recording like that, which will often be the case, we're gonna want to go in and edit it. So let's zoom into this first section where my clips meet here and just listen to that and see if it needs a little crossfade. It's not that bad, but I think I can hear a little clip there. So I'm just gonna drag this over a little bit like that. That should take care of it. Okay, that sounds better. Then I have this whole section here that I really don't need. And so the one way to do this is I can make two splits. So I can split here, I can go over here and split here. I have to select the track first, split here, then delete this, then move this back. That's a lot of work. So there's a couple ways we can speed that up. So one way to speed that up is by using a ripple delete. So if I did the same thing, make a split here and make a split here. Now if I take this track and I go to ripple delete, I can delete and it moves everything over. This speeds up my workflow a lot. So the other way I can do that is by hitting shift delete. So that way I don't have to move the track over. I may still want to do this a little bit to crossfade, but it saves me a little bit of time. So there's an even faster way to do that. So let's undo. I'm just hitting Command Z. So another thing I can do is use my time selection tool. If I use the time selection tool, I can select this entire section. And now when I do a split, it splits and selects that section. And now I can hit Shift Delete and move it over. So that's the fastest way to do that. That way I don't have to move the playhead around. I don't have to reselect the track. So again, speed may not be the most important thing, but as you start to edit more, you'll want to kind of speed up your process a little bit. So now I have this little selection, and if I want to get rid of it, I can just hit the G key. That is going to get rid of the selection automatically. And I'm back in my regular timeline. So let's go back to the move tool. So I'll hit V or click here and move this guy over a little bit and listen to that again. Okay, now I'm recording again. Okay, so let's do a couple more edits. So I'm gonna move over here. So now I have this long pause and then a big So let's listen to that. I don't know. So I want to get rid of that, obviously. So I can take my time selection tool. I can just grab this entire thing, and then I'll hit Command K to split and Shift Delete, and it's gone. So you're going to do a lot of edits like that if you're editing audio, if you're editing voice audio. If you're editing other things, you might not need to do that as much. Don't know what I'm talking about. So, okay, so those are kind of like the main basic edits you're gonna want to do at this point. We'll talk more about like mixing, and we'll add in some other audio sources in a future video, in the next video after this one. But that's like pretty much what we want to do. I talked about the recording level in the previous video. Just remember, you don't want the red clipping, so you're probably going to have to back off the audio recording a little bit. So just use this little fader here. We'll talk more about like mixing and stuff like that in a future video. Okay, so that's basically what I want to cover, just making those basic edits. That'll get you guys kind of started. You can record something, you can make some edits, you can fade them together, and then you can cut out parts that you want to cut out. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is saving our session and some of the files that we're going to look at, and this will become important when we export our files later. So I'm going to save this, and let's take a look at our file browser over here. This kind of mirrors what we have on our computer, because when we add files in, we're going to want to drag them and drop them and do other things. And so you can see we have our recordings here, and these get broken down into different tracks as we make these kind of edits. And we can see what that looks like on the computer as well. So I'm going to go over to the Finder, and here's our new editing project, and there's a bunch of files in here. So let's just look at these real quick. So there's the session itself, that's the edits that we've been making. There is the recorded file. So this is the recording that I made. And then these peak files, the PKF is a peak file. This is a file that Audition generates to make the visual of the audio, just so it saves that, so it doesn't have to regenerate that every time you open the program. There's a backup of all of your previous settings, which obviously you don't really need once you're done editing. And then there are the edits that we've recorded here. So you can see our original edit is this track 7 .wave. That's the original recording that we made. And then you can see the other recordings here. So that's a whole session, and let's see how big that file is. So if I click on this folder and I hit Command I for info, it's 7 megabytes. So it's a decent amount of data considering it's a very, very short recording. But when we export the file, which we'll go over in a later video, you'll see the file size will be much, much smaller. Okay, so that's it for this video. We really just covered some like basic editing steps. In the next video, we'll talk about how to get a file from the web and add it into your session, and so we can start mixing together different audio sources. So I'll see you guys in the next video.